Who are you? What's your role? And who do you work for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Nathan Goulding. I'm the Senior Vice President of Engineering for Vultr. Vultr is the world's largest independent cloud provider. We deploy fundamental cloud infrastructure into 32 global data centers around the world. We offer a suite of services from cloud compute to bare metal to GPU to managed Kubernetes. So I'm excited to be here today.
Now, what are three Kubernetes emerging tools that you're keeping an eye on?
Actually, I'm going to stick with one if that's okay. One technology that I'm actually really super excited about is called Slick, which is Slurm in Kubernetes, so SLIK. It's an Apache 2.0 licensed software that we actually released at Vultr this past year. And what it does is it allows Slurm workloads to run on top of Kubernetes. And so it's a cloud native suite of tools that you can use. And this is really popular with the kind of AI and machine learning engineers who come from typically a Slurm environment where they're running Slurm inside of their bare metal infrastructure and want to consume that in a cloud native way. And so they can use their kind of Slurm native workload jobs and actually run them directly on top of our Kubernetes platform or any Kubernetes platform. It's open source. It doesn't have to be on top of Vultr. Obviously, that's who we've deployed it on top of. But it's on GitHub, github.com/slick. And I'm really excited for you to check it out.
Taking a look at some questions that we have related to podcast guests that have been on the podcast. The first topic is availability and platform engineering. Our guest, Hans, compared delivering software now to 20 years ago. He mentioned that while downtime was acceptable in the past, it isn't today. Hence, building platforms on top of Kubernetes requires more tooling than ever. Is it possible to keep tool sprawling at bay? What kind of tools are essential for building mission-critical platforms?
That's such a great question, and I think that's really, really true and reflects the maturity of the application development lifecycle and cloud delivery. And I think that ensuring that you pick the right tools for the job is really important to do up front, and make sure that you are not adding new tools and software to your application stack without properly understanding how they fit into the overall architecture. And so I think that in terms of the actual delivery of application, I would say that Vultr is the cloud platform for platform engineering teams. And so, when it comes to picking the right tools, it's important that you do it both in terms of the tools, the software applications that you use, but also the actual infrastructure that you use to deploy that. And so, when choosing, I've seen great success in a limited set of mature software stack to deploy and run applications in terms of what a platform team can offer to their application developers. And so, obviously Kubernetes being the job scheduler and container runtime environment is obviously, kind of the underpinning of a lot of it. But how you actually integrate that into your overall CI/CD pipelines. We see a lot of people who leverage Argo CD for deploying their applications and upgrading their pods and clusters in production, as well as in terms of observability and monitoring, ensuring that you have a really great observability stack. And so we use Grafana Cloud for that. We use a lot of our own internal logging and monitoring. We use Prometheus extensively. And so I think it's really important for platform engineering teams to offer to their application developers a core set of software that allows them to really make sure that they're able to deliver their application in a reliable manner in production, while allowing, in maybe lower environments, developers to tool around with other maybe emerging technologies that solve a specific use case, which might not be ready to move into production, but still gives developers the freedom to experiment and try out new technology.
Platform engineering and people. One of our guests, Ori, shared that rushing into solutions without understanding the root cause can lead to fixing symptoms instead of the actual problem. He mentioned the case of network policies and how sometimes the root cause of a problem is a people problem, and the solution lies in addressing that. What is your experience with providing tooling and platforms on Kubernetes to other engineers? What are some of the soft challenges that you faced?
What a great question. I think that, a lot of the problems that we run into actually do boil down to either organizational or people problems. And you look at the communication structure being your technology structure in terms of your organization. I think that's manifests itself in so many different ways. And so people tend to be, understand the technology that they have used themselves or what their team uses. And so they kind of naturally gravitate to, either deploying something for themselves inside of their own kind of autonomous structure of their organization, really not understanding the broader context of the entire platform. And so it's really, really important to as a platform engineering team to have proper socialization and education around what the tools are that you're providing to the entire application developer ecosystem. So if there is an issue that does come up, it's more easily able to troubleshoot what the problem is and where the root cause is. I think also, we see with the proliferation of microservices, there's kind of famous examples of large companies in the world who have just opened up the entire platform to all of their developers. And so, you end up in a situation where a developer might, your entire application development team might have, 1,000, 2,000 different microservices. And when there becomes a problem, there's a ton of duplication of code across those microservices because you have fully autonomous development teams who are completely empowered to make their own decisions and roll out their entire application which is, in their own estimation, the best thing that they should do. But that also oftentimes results in a lot of lack of an optimization and a lot of difficulty in troubleshooting what the root cause is when you have a lot of interconnected dependent services which all have a lot of duplicate functionality. And so I think it's really, striking the right balance between having a really strong platform engineering team that can provide a common set of services to the entire application development team, while at the same time providing a level of autonomy and empowerment to development teams to make their own decisions which they feel are best for themselves or for their team.
Learning the hard way. One of our guests, Luca, decided to learn how containers work the hard way. In his spare time, he built his own Docker in C. What's your strategy for learning new things? How do you keep up with all those Kubernetes tools being released daily?
I can't recommend that anyone probably reinvent the wheel when it comes to, that we have, if anything, a plethora of tools available to us. And, I was at a conference a couple of years back, and somebody made the joke that, as the software development team was assessing what was out in the market, they found many tools that provided 90% of the capability of what they needed as their team. And because the tool didn't provide that last 10%, they decided to write the entire 100% themselves. And I think that is happens a lot. And I think that is something that, again, like I said, there are environments where it is appropriate to experiment and to try new technologies and tools and introduce them into the environment that you have. But I think that if anything, there's too many. I don't want to say there's too many tools available to developers, but there are certainly enough that do enough things that I think that it's important to really refine where you want to be spending your precious development resources, and if it really makes sense to redevelop the wheel and reinvent the wheel from scratch, or whether there are mature enough software platforms and solutions out there that will meet enough of the need where you can integrate them and add on the capability that you need without having to start from scratch.
Kubernetes turned 10 years old this year. What should we expect in the next 10 years to come?
Gosh, what a great question. I'm not great at predicting the future, but I think that Kubernetes has established itself as probably one of, if not the fundamental underpinning of how workload gets scheduled today. And I think that it will continue, whereas the first 10 years has really been defined by a growth in the proliferation of Kubernetes and the maturity of the platform and the adoption of that. I think that in the next 10 years, that maturity will continue. And insofar as that will extend to things in other parts of the organization where Kubernetes might have historically been isolated to the application development teams. And I think that Kubernetes extending into other parts of the organization, such as more traditional IT environments and other things that would introduce other requirements around compliance and governance. I think that introducing those controls and those policies is something that Kubernetes already has a great technical underpinning, and I think that extending that and allowing those to be applied at the organizational level so that those things could be adopted across a broader set of the organization, I think is an area of growth that Kubernetes will likely see over the course of the next decade.
With that in mind, bonus question, what's your least favorite Kubernetes feature? What feature would you like to see improved or removed in the coming months or years?
That's a tough question to say. I think that there's a lot to Kubernetes is an incredibly powerful platform, and so I would say it's hard to pin down one exact thing that I would request to be removed. I think that and every feature that has been developed for a very specific reason, and so I think that it comes down to less what is one specific thing that I would prefer to get removed from Kubernetes, and more so, honestly, it comes down to using the features and capabilities that are there that are present that you need without a lot of the extra that comes in. Honestly, I think that Kubernetes is a great fundamental technology, and it's truly hard to pinpoint exactly one feature that I would say no, that's too much or went in the wrong direction. I think generally speaking, it has good technical governance and oversight and a good roadmap.
What's next for you?
So look, at Vultr, we have, like I said, we have a global cloud infrastructure platform. We operate in 32 global data centers. What's next for us is continuing to bring the latest and greatest technology to our customers in the form of the latest and greatest CPU technology that we're seeing from AMD and Intel, as well as the GPU infrastructure from both NVIDIA and AMD, bringing that to our customers. We are in a really unique position as a modern hyperscaler to be able to deliver large quantities of cloud infrastructure to our application development teams and platform engineering teams at a speed with which other companies simply can't, or have a very difficult time competing. And so that's exciting. There's a lot of work ahead of us. Again, we do operate a global platform. We have a huge infrastructure fleet that we manage on a day-to-day basis, continuing to add capability to our platform in the form of increased IAM and integrating IAM inside of our, not just in terms of our account model, but also in terms of how instances are managed and how node pools and our Kubernetes engine actually integrates against those IAM roles for continued fine-grained access. That's going to be an incredibly powerful feature for our customers, and just continuing to expand our cloud platform in ways that our customers are asking for us is going to be an exciting thing that we're going to be working on for the next year or two.
How can people get in touch with you?
Reach me at ngoulding@vultr.com.